It's time to meet Clifton.
With your host, Ray Grabowski.
Here's Ray.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Meet Clifton. I know the summer is passing us pretty quickly and I hope everyone had a great vacation. I want you to stay tuned tonight because we have some very, very interesting guests. We'll be right back.
Tonight's guests are Doctor of Holistic Medicine, Dr. Glenn Gero, M.A.D.D. Program Specialist, Pedro Medina, PVWC Executive Director, Jim Mueller, featuring the music of Swingman and the Misfit Mutt. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another episode of Meet Clifton.
Okay, welcome to our show. Our first guest is Dr. Gero. Dr. Gero is a holistic naturopathic doctor, and his center is right here in Clifton, actually. And we're going to learn a lot tonight, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Gero. Thank you for coming to the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Since this is probably a new topic for a lot of people, let's just start out with what is am I saying it right or wrong, but pathic medicine?
Yeah, it's naturopathic, like nature. Okay. And naturopathic medicine basically is all about living in concert with our natural laws. Eating properly, exercising, thinking properly, taking the right supplements as we need. And this is all important because if we don't do the things that are appropriate for our lifestyle, we're not going to be well. And oftentimes we're looked at as alternative medicine. But nothing could be further from the truth. Basically, what we do is conventional, is basically the lifestyle medicine is the way we're supposed to live, and it's first-line medicine. So if you're not eating properly, if you're not exercising properly, you are probably a candidate for doing some of the medications that are going to be prescribed by your medical doctors.
So, Doc, can you just explain conventional medicine and holistic medicine? I know it's medication, but maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit for us.
Right. Well, with conventional medicine, if somebody has not been living appropriately, they may be diagnosed with diabetes. Now, a conventional medical doctor is going to treat that diabetes with diabetes medications. With me, if somebody comes in and they've got elevated blood sugar levels, which we would like to get somebody before they actually are diagnosed with diabetes, and be able to change their diet, change the way they live their lives, and if we can do that, we can reverse the effects before they actually become diagnosed with diabetes. But we do get people that do have diabetes, and we're able to reverse that with the appropriate lifestyle implementations.
So, Doc, how many people come to you as a last resort? Because that's what it seems like. They try everything, and then there's the last resort.
Yeah, we don't necessarily love last resort.
No, I know.
But a lot of people do come to me last resort. And for example, cancer is a big part of my practice. I would say cancer is in the top 5 reasons that people come to see me. We've done really well working along with the oncologists, and there's a number of things that I can do that can augment what they're doing with the oncological team. So if we change their diet, change their perspective, and with cancer, for example, a lot of people come to me and they've got fourth stage cancer. And can I give an example of somebody? Somebody came to me with pancreatic cancer, which is a pretty serious cancer. She was given 3 months to live. So I called up her oncologist and I said, these are some of the things that I want to be able to do in addition to what you're doing from a conventional standpoint. So several months later, and probably 6 or 7 months later, her oncologist told her that her tumor markers were down 70%. And when she thanked the oncologist told her, don't thank me, thank the naturopathic doctor you're working with. She lived another 3.5 years with a very, very good lifestyle.
And I can appreciate that. Obviously, it doesn't work for everyone. Depends on the stage, and
that's true.
And we're not advocating for this, but an example is a good example to mention to people that sometimes you want to try everything. People get sick, they want to try it. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if people are going for chemo and different treatments, their nutrition is lacking.
Yeah, that's true. And it's almost laughable when people are doing chemotherapy. Oftentimes during the chemotherapy and as they're walking out of the chemo room, they're given donuts or pastries. And basically, when you think about it, sugar proliferates the growth of tumor cells. So it's almost antithetical to give somebody something that's going to enhance or encourage the growth of the tumor. Whereas what I do by changing somebody's diet, giving them nutrients that are going to support the immune response, enable the chemotherapy to work better, improve their mood, and they've got a better chance of surviving. Now, I can't tell anybody that I'm curing their cancer. What I want to be able to do is enhance the integrity of the body, the physiological response, so that the body can thwart what is it's being affected by.
I understand that too. So, other than cancer patients, what other type of people would come to you? Would they come with you for sports problems? I'm not too sure. We could elaborate on that.
Yeah, sports is a particular interest of me. I would consider myself very strong-minded in sports nutrition, but it's not a big part of my practice. The things that people come to me is anything from chronic fatigue to late-stage cancers. I do a lot of endocrine issues. I consider myself a thyroid specialist. I deal with a lot of blood sugar issues, cardiovascular. I've had people with congestive heart failure that we were able to get out of congestive heart failure. It's considered an area that there's no cure for. But I've had cardiologists that said, hey, I want to go out to dinner with that naturopathic doctor because I want to know what he's doing, because we've had really good success. I get people with joint issues or arthritis, a lot of autoimmune conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, so a very big part of my practice. The second leading reason why people come to me, believe it or not, is anxiety and depression. And if it's not the leading reason that they're coming to see me, it's ancillary to some of the other issues that they're confronted with.
I'm glad you mentioned that because it seems that anxiety and depression is very big. Mental illness nowadays is on the rise. What's the correlation between anxiety and nutrition? You hear that too much caffeine can trigger this. I'm not too sure, but if you could that would be helpful for people to realize.
Yeah, and I find that there's more anxiety and depression now than ever before. I don't know if it's COVID related or it's our lifestyle or it's the internet, but all of these things probably are consequences of this decline in mental health. But in terms of nutrition, a lot of times people are depressed or anxious because they're not eating properly. There's fluctuations in blood sugar levels. So we have to look at that. We also have to look at foods that they may be sensitive to. You've got more people sensitive to some of our foods today, people that are eating a lot of refined carbohydrates, and their blood sugar levels are all over the place. But many of the foods that people are eating are just inappropriate for them, and it triggers a negative response to some of the physiological functions in their body. So that's an issue. But I've also devoted a considerable amount of my continuing education to mind-body medicine. I've been studying mind-body medicine since 1971, and I've completed master's level training in mind-body medicine from Harvard Medical School. So I do a lot of coaching and counseling using biofeedback, acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, guided imagery, so to augment some of the recommendations I'm making with their dietary regimen. And exercise. Exercise probably is one of the leading reasons to reverse anxiety and depression. So we're looking at a 360-degree aspect in reducing their anxiousness and their depressive issues.
So, Doc, now what I want to say is, what's a typical first session? Because if you want to determine their nutrition, so how does this work with the very first session?
Well, unlike going to a medical doctor, I'm not picking on the medical doctors. They do great things for severe issues, acute issues. You want to be in an American hospital with an American doctor. However, because of this current state of medicine in this country, doctors can only spend 10, 15 minutes, if you're lucky, with a medical doctor. My first appointment is an hour and a half. So it's anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. But my questionnaire, my initial intake questionnaire, is 16 pages. So we're getting a lot of information about that particular patient. So even before they walk into my office, I've gone through 16 pages of data trying to be able to narrow down what's going on with that patient, what are their symptoms, what are the areas that they're having the greatest problems with. The other thing is I'm an expert in interpreting blood chemistry. And I've had a number of friends that are medical doctors, and blood chemistry is not one of the things that's really looked at closely with medical doctors. And I know it's ironic because they use that as a tool. But to me, I'm looking at the relationship of the values to each other. So between what I do with looking at blood chemistry, we actually clip people's hair and we send it to a laboratory because it gives us an idea of what's going on from the tissue levels. So we look at many, many different aspects. I have a scale in the office where we're looking at body composition in terms of not only their weight, their body fat percentage, their muscle weight, their bone weight, and also looking at the distribution of water in and out of their cells. So looking at a number of different factors, we can come out and find out what are the causes of their issues rather than just treating a symptom.
So also, when the people come in, would you, I don't want to say counseling, but do you offer them advice? You know, you're saying exercise, diet. Would you sit down and say, gee, do you exercise? Or maybe you should 4 days a week. I know you don't give them a program, but is that part of it, like counseling per se? Yeah,
well, we really do give them a program. However, it's a partnership. Okay. And the interesting thing is when somebody comes to see me, I never tell them what they should do. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's really a negotiation between what a patient feels that they should do, what they're capable of doing, what their threshold is, and me advising them that these are some of the things that you may consider. So I will give them a number of areas that they may consider, and it's up to them to be able to decide, am I ready for this? What am I willing to do? What am I capable of doing? And most importantly, what can I sustain over the long period of time? Because if you create a program, if you start a program, nothing happens unless you stay with the program, because you get a lot of people that say, I exercised for a couple of weeks, I felt really good, but now I'm not exercising and I'm back to where I started from. And I said, geez, you really need to make a determination as to what you need to do long term. So it's really a matter of sustaining that. I have a byline in my practice that wellness is not a part-time job. And it's not as easy as taking a pill and all of a sudden I feel better. It's really about adjusting your mindset to what do I need to do to maintain health for as long as I'm going to live.
Thank you. And just one last question. Actually, I seen a thing saying that life is not a spectator sport. It kind of says it all. The last thing I want to ask you is, because there's a lot of people out there in all different kinds of conditions, young or older, is there any time that it's too late to start a program in life?
I see everything from newborns. Actually, children are a big part of my practice. About 10-12% of my practice are kids, and even young kids. So I see anything from newborns up into my oldest patient was 102. One funny story, because my patient that was 102, I was working with him for, at that time, probably for about 12 years. And he said, I'm starting to get a lot of issues. What do you think it is? I said, is this the first time you've been 102? He laughed too, but he didn't necessarily think it was funny. But I do deal with a lot of centenarians. Not centenarians. I'm talking about people that are over 70. The fortunate thing is I'm older than most of my patients, so I can certainly understand what their issues are. But part of my background was I used to work for a company called AgeWave. And AgeWave was an interesting company because it really analyzed the transitions in life and how you would reposition your life in accordance to where you are from an aging standpoint. And transitioning your life is really important. And a lot of older people that are retired, they have, in many ways, they feel like they've been put out to pasture. And they're sitting on the couch waiting to die. And we want to be able to instill a sense of purpose. So at any stage, we want to be able to do that. So keep in mind, it's not just a matter of let me organize your diet and tell you what foods to eat, but really having you understand all of the ramifications of successful living, and thinking is a major aspect of that.
Doc, thanks. It's a lot of information. I appreciate you coming on, and I'd just like to leave everybody with health is wealth.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
Very much. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, Clifton and friends. Welcome to Meet Clifton and the updates. I'm Sharon Korbanix and always happy to be here with you. Well, we hope you enjoyed the summer concerts at Botany Village and Maine Memorial Park. Again, I believe this weekend will be the last of them, but you can anticipate next year we'll have more fun also. So again, it's Botany Village and Maine Memorial Park. Botany Village is on Friday nights. Maine Memorial Park is on Sunday evenings. Now, we have some great save the dates to remember, please. Sunday, September 10th from 9 to 4, the Boys and Girls Club of Clifton will have their 10th annual car, truck, motorcycle show. But more details will follow with a special guest, so please stay tuned for that. Then on September 22nd, that Friday, it's the Senior Barbecue. It will be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Senior Barn, the Clifton Senior Center, which is 900 Clifton Avenue. And it's open to all seniors, again, 65 years young or even more mature. But you do need to register, so please call 973-470-2234. And a little special event, there is a trip to Maine, and that is October 2nd through October 6th. And it's leaving from the Clifton Masonic Lodge on 1476 Van Houten Ave. And again, it is October 2nd to October 6th. They will be leaving at 8 a.m. So for more information, please call Karen 973-420-8605 or Janet 973-473-2321. But we want to wish everyone, I hope you had a great summer and looking forward to having a wonderful Labor Day. But again, please tune in for the special event regarding the Clifton Boys and Girls Club and their special event. Thank you. Hi everyone, we're here with a special guest to talk about the Boys and Girls Club, the Car, Truck, Motorcycle Show. And our guest is?
Hi, I'm Drea representing the Boys and Girls Club of Clifton, our annual 10th annual Car, Truck, and Motorcycle Show. It's going to be on September 10th, 1255 Broad Street, represented with a lot of great sponsors. Biggest sponsor is Fetty Ford. If you come to the show, you'll see at least 500 cars, trucks, and motorcycles, and Peaches will be there also. We have things for the children, we have food, we have vendors, we have a swingman and the Misfit Mutts, and DJ Nick at Night. Over 100 trophies, plus we have door prizes, and we have t-shirts for all the car people. It's a big event for the city. It's the 10th annual. Please come and join us, 1255 Broad Street, 9 until 4 o'clock. All you car people out there, you know you need to come early to get your space. So hope to see you there, September 10th, 1255 Broad Street. Thank you so much.
Welcome back. My next guest is Mr. Pedro Medina. He's a program specialist for New Jersey M.A.D., which stands for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's a big organization, and it's needed because there are a lot of problems, and Mr. Medina is going to explain that to us. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. First, we're going to talk about the involvement in the community, but can you please tell me about M.A.D. if someone doesn't even know what it is?
Sure. First of all, I want to say that it's an honor to be here, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and to talk about our organization and what we can do for the community.
Okay.
M.A.D. was founded in 1980 in California by Candace Leitner, whose 13-year-old daughter, she was a mother whose 13-year-old daughter was killed by a drunk driver. Prior to that event, the offender was convicted of 4 DWI convictions. Wow. So upon knowing that, and also in addition to finding out that the courts were very lenient when it came to drunk driving crashes, she decided to take her grief, frustration, anger to Congress and ask for stricter and harsher laws against DWI and DUI offenders. President Reagan passed a law which was the minimum legal age of 21, which meant that no person under 21 can buy or sell liquor anywhere in the country. M.A.D. has 4 mission goals. The first one is very important, is to end drunk driving. The second one is to help fight drug driving. The third is to support the victims and their families of these 100% preventable crimes. And lastly is to prevent underage drinking. My role as a program specialist is to educate and bring awareness to middle schools, high schools, and also parents on the dangers and consequences of driving impaired.
Let's stay on that topic for a second. When you give your lectures, you speak at schools, what do you focus on? The drinking basically, or the dangers?
No, we have presentations that we do, and they're geared for the different age groups. We do one for Power of Me, which is for the 4th and 5th graders. We also do the Power of Youth, which is for middle schools and high schools. And of course, they're different because of different age brackets.
So let me ask you a question then, because you just mentioned it too. It's not just alcohol, then we're talking about other substances like marijuana. Is that included in this program?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay.
But I mean, like I said, our main concern is to end the drunk driving.
Right, but
Yeah, go ahead.
how do you plan on ending the drunk driving? Because people keep, I know it sounds great, but what's the plan for that? Is there a plan?
We have to bring awareness, and we have to start early. Education begins at the home. We have to educate our parents, and we have to actually, let them know that it's not a good thing to do. I mean, if you're going to take alcohol or anything that would affect your body, that's going to make you feel different, you're going to drive different. So that's a major thing.
So, it's important. Now, a lot of people are going to say, by watching this, how do I get involved in this? How do they, is there a volunteer, is an organization people can
Yes.
get involved with?
We do have volunteers. You can register online at MADD.org/NJ, and you can either, be an advocate for policy change in your state. You can volunteer as if any local activities are happening that deals with MADD, they can volunteer as well and call that person who's in charge. They can donate, of course. There's so many ways that you can actually help out. You can also become a victim advocate, meaning that you will deal with different victims and their issues. But of course, you'll be trained for that as well.
Right.
And we have various types of things that volunteers can do.
Besides the victim advocate, does MADD get involved? Let's say there is a tragedy in the family. Do they get involved in helping the family in any way?
Yes. We help the victims. First of all, there's a 24/7 victim helpline, which the professionally trained advocates and volunteers that deal with these calls, and they're compassionate, victim focused, to help with their issues and to calm them down. We also guide them and tell them about the information about the criminal and judicial civil system process that goes on, because some of these offenders go before the court, and the victims would like to go there in person. We also accompany them just to support them and be emotional support to these victims as well. We also refer them to therapy if they need. There's so many things that we have for the victims.
So there's help for people.
Absolutely.
Through the organization. I mean, I know the laws and the legislation is a lot tougher now on drunk drivers, but people have to realize you may be taking a life. And I read someplace that they said, I think it was 60% of the people killed by drunk drivers are children under 5. I don't know how true that is, but even if it's a slight statistic, it's children that are victims.
In addition to, let me just go back to what we're talking about, the victims. In addition to all the things that I said about victims and what we do for the victims, we also set up peer groups, and we also, if they need referrals to therapy, and we also try to give them a chance to speak out, whether it be at the schools or any type of event that we have, that they want to speak out and tell their testimony. We have that as well. We try to kind of also bring them together. If they have the similar experiences where they lost someone or they were involved in some sort of a crash with drunk driver. We try to bring them together to actually they can kind of cope with each other. Just to more like therapeutic type of deal. So we have all that as well.
Okay, and I guess lastly, and this is important because holidays roll around, and that's when people drink. So what advice can you give people? Labor Day is coming up. So
Yes.
if you had to say one thing to the people, what do we do here?
If you're going to drink, and don't drive. That's a basic thing. You know, there's so many options now. You have Uber, you have Lyft, you have a friend, get a friend that will, but don't drink and drive. And that's the most important thing.
Right, so thank you for being a part of the show. And people, this is important because, you know, drinking is a big issue, and I don't know that you want to be responsible for taking a life because you were inconsiderate or not responsible, and you had one too many drinks. And like Mr. Medina just said, you don't take an Uber, you call someone, they tell you all the time. So
let me just say one thing. I mean, you know, M.A.D. believes that we should live in a world, you know, that there should be, where individuals should be safe to live, work, and play. You know, we are caring individuals, compassionate about what we do, and with the common purpose, and that's to end the dangers of drunk and drug driving, which happens, you know, which not only is a violent crime, it's also a health and safety issue. So, and it happens in any community, anywhere. So I just want to say that, you know, we can just help us to, you know, alleviate this problem, and you know, maybe we can live in a world where we have, you know, we can live and work and play.
thank you. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Ray. It's an
An
honor.
excellent
Thank you.
message. I hope people heed this warning. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, so welcome back. In the city of Clifton, there's been so many questions, you know, about Passaic Valley Water Commission and the problems, and we're solving a lot of them. But with us tonight is Mr. Jim Mueller, he's the executive director of the Passaic Valley Water Commission. Jim, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Today we're going to try to learn a little bit more, and hopefully Jim explains what's going on. He's been here a few times to explain to the people, but today let's just start with, you know, what are the challenges facing Passaic Valley Water?
So thank you for having me
That's
tonight.
okay.
It's a pleasure to be here. So we have several challenges that we're facing. You know, the first one, it's pretty typical in the United States and actually globally, which is aging infrastructure. We have pipes in the ground that are 80, 90, 120 years old. Some are not quite that old, but they're made of different kinds of material that maybe wasn't the best kind that when they were placed maybe 50 or 60 years ago. So again, assessing that, coming up with a plan to replace those pipes in a way that's you know, fiscally prudent, but addresses the main problems is one of our key issues. We also have our treatment plant over in Little Falls in Totowa, and that's 25 years old. There's certain processes there that need to be replaced. And then we have our reservoirs, of course, that I'll talk to in a little bit. The second issue we have is regulations and ever-changing regulations. We are a water utility. We are regulated by the state of New Jersey and the federal government through the US EPA. There's a lot of different regulations as testing and health impacts become more clear. You know, regulations will ramp down, and we're trying to keep ahead of that. We're doing a lot of pilot testing and assessing our own capabilities in order to meet ever-changing regulations. The third piece is climate change. As we all know, storms are getting larger or more intense and more frequent. So how do we deal with that, both from a flooding perspective as well as power? You know, in terms of damaging winds can knock out the local power utility, and how are we ready to continue our operations and sustain through that? And then finally, it's coordination with the utilities, the cities, Clifton being one of our owner cities, you know, coordinating with that town in terms of the street work, paving, our own pipes, sewers, you know, how all that's coordinated and prioritized. So those are the main challenges that we're dealing
Let
with.
me just ask you, the replacement pipes, what are they made of? Because they're obviously not made of cast iron anymore.
Right. So, you know, ductile iron replaced the old unlined cast iron pipes in the 60s, but there was a lot of pipes placed in Clifton particularly post-World War II, where you could see it in our history, the data we have on pipe age. It went up linearly after World War II as the area growed, and it wasn't as I've presented before to the city council. Certain areas of Clifton, just you can see it in the design. There's dead end loops in certain streets. It wasn't designed for as a flow through, and it was just an artifact of the planning. I guess it happened in stages or maybe quickly, in the post-war baby boom era, and that's what we're dealing with now. So when we're going, it's not just pipe age, it's the design of the systems, trying to make that better from a water age perspective and delivering cleaner water to the customers.
Right. And you were mentioning flooding, because that's a big issue. Someone told me that 20 years ago we had 21 inches of rain a year, and now we're at 40. And how does that affect the reservoirs?
Right. So, in terms of the climate change and the flooding risk, when you have that much rain, we can have, events of 2 inches, 3 inches in a day or in a few hours, which might equal a month of rain. How do you manage that water? We're working very closely with the county. We're also making sure our own drainage systems are kept in good working order to make sure we can handle that kind of storm water. We're also, as part of our regulations program, moving away from the open water reservoirs and building storage tanks. We plan to bid out the Levine storage tanks in the fall. That'll make us more resilient as well and protect from flooding risk.
So that would help with the tanks, because that's a big issue, because you're not going to add more reservoirs.
Right.
But the tanks, could you just explain a little, because I need to understand that.
Sure. So the existing open water reservoirs, they were built many years ago, decades and decades ago. That's no longer legal to have an open air finished drinking water reservoir. So we're replacing that with storage tanks, starting with the Levine Reservoir over in Patterson near the Passaic River. So we'll put in place 2.5 million gallon storage tanks and take that reservoir out of service, and then the system would float off the storage, and then we'll move through New Street Reservoir and then eventually Great Notch Reservoir. We're working on some different alternatives for each of these. It actually mixes with our pipe replacement program as well to make sure we have the right pipes and the system is hardened, the conveyance system is hardened, so that when we take reservoirs out of service to work on them, we can wheel the water around to the customers as they need it. So both programs, the pipe replacement program and the reservoir storage program, go hand in hand.
Okay, I appreciate that. And now I'm going to ask a couple of questions that if residents were here would ask.
Sure.
How do you coordinate with the utilities? Because sometimes we hear, Passaic Valley was here, they dug up the street, they paved it. 6 months later, someone else came in, PSE&G. So is there any way to rectify that? Or?
So we've initiated quarterly meetings with the city manager in Clifton. We do this with all our owner cities and retail areas, but with Nick Villano in Clifton, we meet with them quarterly. The city engineer will be there to just coordinate on our permits to make sure we're submitting the right information to the chief engineer of Clifton. There's certainly areas of improvement there that we're working on, and working with Nick and the team has been great. We're also meeting quarterly with PSE&G, and they do a lot of gas main work, or they'll do telephone replacements. There's a lot of work that they do in the area. We want to make sure we're well coordinated with them. Unauthorized hydrant usage also leads to a lot of discolored water because of that inrush of water. When there's a fire or something, you accept that because we're trying to protect property and public health. But for normal use, contractors in general should not be opening hydrants, particularly in vulnerable areas. We do have a quarterly flushing program where we'll go out to known problem areas like the Valley Road area, the Albion section of Clifton, and do proactive flushing. But when contractors will go out and stir up those hydrants, because some of those street activities not related to PVWC are water intensive, either paving or some other work that they're doing on gas line replacements, we'll try to, we want to address that. If folks do see that happening, we'd actually either call the police or call us, because it's not allowed. But we've been working very closely with PSE&G, to prevent that and better coordinate our work.
Right, because that's what I was going to ask. Who, you answered the question. If people see this, can they call Passaic Valley Water?
They sure can.
And is there a fine connected with this?
So each city is different. There's an ordinance in each city, and Clifton has one that actually prohibits the unauthorized use of fire hydrants. It's only supposed to be emergency staff like the fire department, or PVWC staff. Those are the only ones authorized to touch those hydrants. So if you see a contractor on that, it's not allowed. And I don't remember what the fine is in Clifton, but that's administered by the cities. We've been started writing letters, working closely with Nick, notifying the contractors that they should cease that activity. And we've had people send in videos, so we'll have documented who the contractor was, which is very helpful.
Right.
Because we're trying to prevent that going forward.
Okay, and I guess the last, you answered a little bit, but just so people understand, you're continually doing things to minimize the brown water. So explain to the people exactly what we're doing, because I know it's a big issue, and I know you've been working on it, but so they can understand it, to understand that you are working on it.
No, it's a great point, particularly in certain vulnerable areas in Clifton, like the Albion section I mentioned. It can be stirred up for a lot of different reasons. A lot of that is those cast iron pipes that were put in post-World War II, the unlined pipes. So what we're doing right now is targeted flushing in those areas, whether it's dead-end loops or just in general a more systemic area. We just finished flushing over the weekend because we had a call in regards to complaints, and we went out there Friday night and flushed throughout the weekend. It did clear, so that area should be back to normal. We've also sampled in our own system at the reservoirs and didn't see anything out of whack there in terms of water quality issues. So it looks like our suspicion is, again, that local hydrant usage in that area that's vulnerable to discolored water because of tuberculated pipes, just the age of those pipes and the material they're made out of, they're prone to that. And eventually we just have to get in there and replace them. That's our longer term goal. But in the meantime, we'll keep this flushing going to make sure that discolored water gets flushed out when it does occur.
And just for my own edification, residents that call, they'll call you directly, maybe not you, but the office. Do we have a good rapport with Passaic Valley if customers do call?
Yeah, in general, we try to be as responsive to every single, whether it's a billing question, whether it's a discolored water issue, or any other issue, or just inquiries, in terms of what we're doing or work that we have planned. So we have an excellent customer service department led by Maria Malfa. We have audio on every call, so sometimes I do get complaints and I'll go back and listen to the audio. And quite often, our staff are very professional. They're ready to work with people. If you do have a complaint, even if you might not understand what's going on, they're happy to talk to you, walk you through, or better understand your issue. So I'm very proud of our customer service staff. We spent a lot of time developing that group, making sure, and again, we use the audio recordings as a QA, a quality assurance, to make sure they're getting the right messages out or dealing with people in the right tone. We'll call people back. I know Maria herself will call people and say, hey, are you still having that issue? We think we cleared it. How is it on your end? And quite often they'll say, thanks for the call back, and that it does clear. Unfortunately, the type of system we have, the type of pipes we have, it's going to be a long-term kind of replacement. We are, as I mentioned at the council meetings, we have engineering contracts in place to develop a prioritized plan. We're making good headway. I hope to have something, in terms of what we're going to execute in the short term in the next few months, in terms of what those are, and then we just have to talk about financing and priorities and that kind of thing. But we're getting there. We'll continue to target and flush to minimize the issue and get into the capital replacement longer term.
I appreciate all the information. I think when people call, even if they can't resolve the problem, they appreciate the respect of the call back or just to be answered. All they want is an answer, whether it's what they want to hear or not. They like to know that they're being respected. So, and I know you're doing that because I hear a lot of good things. So, Jim, I appreciate you coming on. Hope this helps the residents at home. Any questions, obviously, you could call Passaic Valley Water. So, Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, that's our show for tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We had some really special guests, and I think even George Silva learned something today.
Yes, I have.
That's good. And that's what we like to do with this show. We like to present information that people at home can watch and maybe learn from. Till next time, though, be good to your friends and family. Respect your neighbors. Keep Clifton close to your heart. This is a great city. Thank you. God bless. Good night.
Alrighty.